What happens to your Portuguese and worldwide assets if you die while living here in Portugal? Will Portugal even recognize your home country's will? And do you even need a Portuguese will to ensure that your assets are properly passed down to your beneficiaries? Well, in today's episode, we sit down with expert and real estate lawyer Maria Câncio from Fresh Portugal to answer exactly these questions and more. You'll learn everything you need to know about why you need a Portuguese will, everything about the process of how to create it, and learning legal terms such as forced heirship and why that matters to you. This is an episode you don't want to miss, so you know how to protect your assets while living in Portugal. So let's get into it. Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel, Nations Without Borders. My name is Eric, and together with my wife Justine and our two children, we are the Nation family. On this channel, we publish weekly videos, at least at the moment, bi-weekly until my wife gets back from maternity leave, but usually weekly videos about our lifestyle here in Portugal, anything from remote work to family travel. We moved to Portugal back in 2022, and we just share a lot about our knowledge and experience. If you've been following our channel for a bit now, then you know we recently bought our dream home near the lovely town of Heirship, and my wife Justine recently gave birth to our new baby boy. Now, with all of these major life events happening, we knew it was time for us to be responsible adults and get a will created just in case, God forbid, anything happens to any of us. We want to make sure that our children are taken care of the way we want and that our assets are also handed down the way we want with as little friction as possible. Fresh Portugal has an amazing team of real estate lawyers, and it just so happens that they also offer the service of creating wills for their clients. And since this task is so often overlooked by foreigners, we sat down with Maria from Fresh so she could educate us and our viewers on why this is so important. So without further ado, let's get into the interview. Hi everyone. We are here today in Lisbon at Fresh Portugal's office, and we are joined with Maria Câncio, lawyer at Fresh Portugal. Hello, Maria.
Hi, Eric.
Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm super happy to be here today.
Awesome. Well, can you tell us a little bit more about Fresh Portugal for our viewers who aren't familiar and exactly what you do at Fresh?
So, Fresh Portugal is a Portuguese law office that now is located in Lisbon, and we assist expats moving to Portugal, and we give real estate, immigration, tax advice, and regarding this interview, also estate planning advice. I'm a real estate lawyer and an estate planning lawyer. Mm-hmm.
And speaking of real estate planning, for those of you who follow our channel, you know that we recently bought a home, and Maria, thank you. Maria was there with us at the notary when we were signing the final deed. Super exciting. She also acted as our translator along with her colleague Daniel Rousseau. So they are an awesome real estate team here in Portugal. They're the best.
Thank you, Eric.
We had a very good experience. But today, as you know, we are talking about estate planning and getting a Portuguese will. So let's go ahead and dig into it.
Awesome.
Maria, can you tell our viewers why exactly is it so important that they get a Portuguese will?
No, it's very important for me, a hot topic, and thank you for remembering this, giving the opportunity to US viewers and international viewers to understand the estate planning laws in Portugal. So, in Portugal, we have, in comparison with US, that does not happen like this, forced heirship rules. What this means, when someone will be deceased in Portugal, does not mean that will be a Portuguese citizen, could be expat living in Portugal under a valid visa, the Portuguese laws will apply, which means that there is heirship rules. The state could not be managed and divided in the way that the citizens wanted, but according to the Portuguese law. So it's very important to guarantee, for instance, US citizens living in Portugal, that the US trust and US wills are according to the Portuguese law. And the only way to make sure that that will happen is to do a Portuguese will with an opt-out solution to the Portuguese law.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for explaining that. And yeah, the reason that I even started thinking about doing the Portuguese will is because Fresh Portugal posted something on your social media. They're like, you should get it for these reasons. I'm like, oh, dang. Now that we have our daughter Nora and our newly born son, and
beautiful family. I just want to add this.
Thank you. And now that we bought a house, we're like, oh, now we actually do have assets in Portugal. We have, children to hand those down to in case anything happens to us. So I view it kind of like as insurance. You hope you never need it, but God forbid anything happens, which it won't because we're going to live to 100 years old.
We will.
100, 120, 140 with all the...
I would say yes, in 5 years.
But you never know, and you want to make sure that your assets are properly handed down to your heirs or your beneficiaries in the way that you want. And as Maria mentioned, with Portuguese law, even if you have a will in your home country or wherever, if you don't have one in Portugal, but you're a resident here and you're living here and a tax resident.
And you have estate located in Portugal, real estate or bank accounts or jewelry or immovable property and so on. So all types of property will happen the Heirship rules.
Yeah,
it's important to mention that, not only to real estate.
Yeah, so like if they don't have a Portuguese will, then Portugal forced heirship laws and succession laws could apply. To your worldwide assets.
And not worldwide, to the state planning, state located in Portugal, but what happened is the following. The Portuguese tax authorities and the Portuguese authorities, public authorities, probably will request information to the US, in this case, for instance, Eric is a US citizen, to the US authorities to understand the trust, will, and that will bring a lot of issues and a lot of problems. So 100% to a Portuguese will, where you decide to opt out to the Portuguese law, apply to the US law in Portugal, and make sure that your US will agrees and is concordant with the Portuguese will.
Gotcha. Well, that makes sense. Thanks for explaining that. And for our viewers who aren't familiar with like forced heirship, can you explain that more?
Obviously, for instance, I will mention Eric's example. It's much easier to understand. The viewers understand. So, if something happens to Eric, will not happen. Obviously, he will die after 100 years. I will expect that. His beautiful wife, Josine, will inherit in Portugal, for the assets located in Portugal, half of the estate. The other half will be inherited by both of the kids, or in the future for all the kids in equal shares. So what happens, and in my experience for US clients, they prefer that first the deceased wife or husband inherits the estate, and only after his death or her death will be the kids inherit. So it's very important to guarantee that these forced heirship rules does not apply to the Portuguese state, and that the US will is agreed with the Portuguese will.
Yes. So kind of basically what you're saying, for forced heirship, like a percentage of the real estate, it goes to the spouse, but a percentage of it is forced to go to the children. And if you don't want that, that can create problems.
Create a lot of problems, and it's not like that. And if your US will does not apply this and apply other rules, because in US the law permits that people decide who will inherit which asset in what percentage. So this will have a problem. The US will not apply to the Portuguese state. So it's very important to define this and to opt for the opt-out solution and apply the US law in Portugal. That is possible, and the succession directive of European Union that facilitates a lot of process for US clients living in Portugal.
Gotcha. And this is one question that I was asking you when we were in the process of creating our own will.
We discussed all of these matters.
Yeah. I asked her all the questions.
But please go ahead to the viewers. I obviously want to help.
So one question for me was like, in the US, I don't even have a will yet because I just don't own any real estate in the US as of yet. But so if someone has a will or doesn't have a will, should they plan and strategize with you to make sure that their US will is like working well with their Portuguese will?
Exactly. So in case of Eric, Eric did not have yet a US will. So it's possible under the Portuguese will, also the state located in the US, be managed by the Portuguese will. But what I recommend to Eric is, with time, obviously, to do a US will similar to the Portuguese one, and I can handle that with US attorneys. But for instance, in normal terms, the clients that arrive here, they have US wills. What I do is guarantee that the Portuguese will matches with the US will. So I create a very general Portuguese will that could include future assets of state to be acquired in Portugal, and guarantees that future change to the US trust or US will also to be guaranteed. So will be a very general Portuguese will that includes all amendments to US trusts and wills.
So basically what you're saying is like when you create the Portuguese will, you make sure that if the client desires, you make sure that the Portuguese government knows their US will has priority, those laws
Exactly.
and that jurisdiction should apply.
Obviously, we will include, and we send the draft, and soon, very soon, we'll do the notarization, a very clause, a huge clause in the Portuguese will that states that US law will apply to the Portuguese state.
Awesome.
In order to guarantee, and that is named the opt-out solution, opt-out for Portuguese law.
Cool. All right, on to the next question, which is one I also asked you in our email exchange is, when someone's creating a will, if it's their first time creating a will or whatever, what are the types of considerations that they should be putting in their will, protecting, etc.?
So first, for me, it's important to notice that I try that the Portuguese will to only be notarized one time with the very general clauses. But it depends. If you have minors, it's very important to consider who will be guardians of the kids. So very important decision to be made and to be asked to the family members.
Yeah, because when we were doing ours, I didn't even think of that. Josine was asking about that. But yeah, since we have kids, like if something happens to me or both of us, God forbid, then we want to make sure that we have guardians lined up that are able to take them on for guardianship, because if we don't, then the Portuguese government decides what happens to...
The Portuguese family courts will decide that for you if you do not have a Portuguese will.
So for an international family living in Portugal, if you have siblings or family members or grandparents in a different country, you want to make sure that you get them listed as guardians on your will. That way the Portuguese government will be like, okay, you can go live with whoever you choose.
Exactly. Normally, what is stated in will be respected by a family court if that situation will go to the court, but normally with a Portuguese will and that situation be defined, we do not expect any litigation on that matter.
Okay, cool. And then if someone creates a will with Fresh and yourself, do they ever need to go back and make changes? If so, how often? Or is this like a one-time deal?
One time deal. So I always try to do one time Portuguese will.
That's awesome.
It's very, very good.
All right, and like, I'm curious, do you have any stories of clients, obviously keeping them anonymous, that maybe did not have a will created and something bad happened, and then, yeah, like a horror story or something like that?
Not yet, because Fresh Portugal, it's very recent. So, but I think that with time, those kind of situations will start to happen a lot.
Yeah.
Because if something happens and expat living in Portugal under a valid resident visa dies, what happens is the Portuguese tax authorities and Portuguese public authorities will start to request information, will apply for heirship rules and so on. And those rules, the Portuguese rules, are not in accordance with the trusts and US settled in the US. So that will originate a lot of problems between US authorities and Portuguese authorities.
Yeah.
That will happen if you do not have a Portuguese will.
Yeah, and that would be horrible.
Horrible. So who is living in Portugal understands that the public authorities, they do the best that they can, but things take time to be settled. So in a normal process to Portuguese citizens with Portuguese states, it takes around 1 year to new heirs to be registered and so on, but I anticipate in these cases of expats living in Portugal without the Portuguese will, this could take years to solve.
So with like the Portuguese bureaucracy, imagine how everything long it takes in immigration or whatever. In the case of a will and heirship and designating assets and whatnot, if you're an expat and they have to deal with all these complications, it could take years.
It will take 100% years to be solved.
Yeah, so...
And a lot of money spent on solving this.
Yeah, so you could think of a will as like an insurance plan, but like the most important insurance plan you could get, and it doesn't require a monthly subscription. You pay one time, you have it done, and then you're protected.
Obviously, it's so important as request immigration visa, do the tax registers, buy a real estate or in the real estate. For me, it's a step, and for our office, so equally important.
Next question. When someone is creating a will, is real estate the only types of assets they need to consider or list in there, or what other types of assets?
So normally bank accounts and mobile property like furniture, paintings, art and so on, but normally There are some clients that they prefer and they execute a list of items and they decide whose sibling or who kid will inherit each, but normally I create a very general clause that states that the designated heirs will inherit a percentage of the assets located in Portugal, and that includes that percentage of the bank account, of the real estate, and so on.
Okay, cool. And then I think another frequently asked question that people will have when watching this video is like, a lot of people don't know about the need to have a will. Is it required by law or is it optional?
It's optional. It's not required by law, but will avoid a lot of issues in the future. So if you have the opportunity, and I hope so, do a Portuguese will.
Okay, cool. So highly recommended. And then, so if they're watching this video and you're like, all right, I'm sold, I need to create a Portuguese will stat, I just bought real estate, I have kids, whatever. What is the process? Let's say they contact you, they want to make a will. What does that process look like?
So the first step, normally they contact, I work with Daniel, he's the head of real estate and estate planning, but I'm assisting the clients on the same planning. So the first step will be a free consultation. After that free consultation, we decide the budget. And after the approval of our fees and our budget, we create a draft with information that we request to our clients. Mm-hmm. After that information that the client will send to us, we'll create a draft that will be approved by the clients that hire our services. And after that, we will do the notarization.
Okay.
Before a public notary.
Gotcha. So it's a pretty straightforward process.
Super straightforward process.
When we were going through it, yeah, like she said, you do an email exchange, you list out your concerns, what assets you have, all these types of considerations. Maria will create a draft for you, and then you go back and forth on it until you get to the final version, and then you schedule an appointment at a notary.
Or at a notary. That will be needed to be present two witnesses that normally are colleagues or lawyers or administrative staff from Fresh Portugal, and a legal translator that normally will be me.
Gotcha. And then do people ever bring their own witnesses or you just provide the witnesses?
We provide witnesses, much easier, and they feel much safer because are people that work at Fresh Portugal. So
Gotcha.
100% will handle that also.
Yeah, so that makes it even easier. You don't have to worry about bringing your own witnesses.
Very straightforward process. Very easy, so I think that you had that experience, and I hope that you enjoy it.
Yep. Another question for creating the will. Is it possible for a married couple to have a joint will, or does each spouse need to have their own will?
No, according to Portuguese law, each spouse needs to have her own will, but obviously the wills are coordinated, so they match each other.
Gotcha. And then let's say we have a viewer who's on a budget or they're a do-it-yourself type of person. Is it possible for them to create their own will and go to a notary, or do you have to have a lawyer involved?
Normally you need to be a lawyer involved, because if you do not speak Portuguese, it's needed a legal translator, and normally a legal translator should be a lawyer, so it's needed a Portuguese lawyer.
Okay, cool. And then for people, just to give them a ballpark for budget, roughly how much does it cost to get a will done by Fresh Portugal?
So with the draft prepared, managing the notarization, the legal translation services, the witnesses, all the process around 2,000.
Okay. And then, but the first consultation is...
Will be, it's free,
included,
it's obviously, and all the amends to the draft. So it's a very open conversation between the clients and our lawyers,
Gotcha.
me in this case.
Nice. And let's say someone moves here, they're on a visa or whatever, they have legal residency and they've relocated here. At what point should they contact Fresh to get a will out? When do you think it's important for them to do so?
It's very interesting, this question, Eric, and thanks for asking. I think that some couple months ago, normally is after obtaining the visa. Now I'm starting to see another tendency that before the move, they do a Portuguese will in order to guarantee that all the real estate that they will purchase, or if they are golden visa clients and are doing investments in Portugal, those investments located in Portugal are protected. So now I'm seeing this tendency of doing the will before the move to Portugal.
Nice. Yeah, that's smart. Just get ahead of it.
Get ahead of time and prepare. If something happens, it's all handled.
All right. Awesome. Well, as you heard, it's very important to get your Portuguese will. Reach out to Fresh Portugal. I believe it's freshportugal.com.
Freshportugal.com, exactly.
Yeah. Maria Câncio and Daniel Rousseau, their real estate team, they will help you out and get you all set up. Thank you, Maria, for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's very nice to be your lawyer, Angelzine.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
There you have it. If you're living in Portugal, do not risk your assets being managed in any way other than the way that you want to. If you're living here and you have children, real estate, or any other assets, just do yourself a favor and get that Portuguese will created. It's better safe than sorry, and your family members will thank you for it. Now, if you found our content in this video helpful or insightful, please do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It doesn't cost you anything. And also, don't forget to like the video so our content reaches more traveling and international families out there. Thank you for watching, and remember, explore life beyond borders. Bye, ciao, até logo, dui.